What up, y'all? It's your boy Dreadhawk.
Dreadhawkandcash.
Back with another video.
Yes, we are.
We got some Mr.Nightmare, yo. We got horrifying haunted houses that take it too far. How many of y'all have been in haunted houses when Halloween comes along? I ain't been in a haunted house in years.
Yeah, I haven't been in years.
Wow, yo.
I think I was a kid.
Yeah.
Last time I went.
Well, I ain't been a kid. Yeah, probably been. But I've been wanting to get to a real good scare one. And I think it might have to be one this year. Make sure y'all like this video. Leave us comments down below how you feel about the videos. And let's get into it.
The first haunted house on this list is Dead of Night. Dead of Night was an attraction run by the Chamber of Horrors on Long Island, New York that closed in 2015. It was regarded as one of New York's most extreme haunted houses, and it had one of the most horrifying haunt openings many had ever seen. Everyone waited in lines, listening to a calming pre-recorded message saying, "We are here for your protection.
Everything will be okay. You are safe. We are here to protect you and care for you. We love you.
That sounds crazy already.
Nothing is real. All is well."
Which was interrupted at intervals by an air raid siren and men in gas masks and suits who each grabbed an unsuspecting patron and dragged them into the attraction. However, you'd be lucky if you were dragged in. Some people were zipped into body bags and some were thrown over actors' shoulders and carried in.
Yeah. Y'all already going too far. Zipping people up in body bag type stuff and throwing them over your shoulder type and
right.
Yeah, y'all going a little
Did they tell them that they was gonna do all that stuff? Like we was gonna physically like
whatever they just had told them right there. That was it, I guess.
Right.
Some people were zipped into body bags and some were thrown over actors' shoulders and carried in. The attraction opened with this very strong abduction scenario. Then the focus shifted to humiliation, which included the smearing of strange substances on patrons' faces and even hitting people in the face with large and painfully heavy objects. Dead of Night has been discontinued.
See?
You digging it too far for real.
And they said you'll be safe.
What hitting me in my damn head was some painful objects? I don't know how to fight.
They going to that little. Oh my gosh. Yo.
Whoa, y'all.
In the face with large and painfully heavy objects. Dead of Night has been discontinued from the Chamber of Horrors, but people to this day still hope to see it return.
What? Why?
In Chicago, Illinois, there's a haunted house called Miasma, which is just as extreme, if not more extreme, than Dead of Night. Miasma is restricted to those 18 and older, and patrons may only enter alone. Patrons will be restrained, blindfolded, smeared with blood, endure heavy physical contact, and more. It's invite only, however, and patrons who receive an invite commonly describe the instructions in the email to be very vague but clear, and that was to not share the location of where they're going with anyone, to show up alone, and do not show up late.
No, sir.
If the instructions were ever disregarded, the experience would end. All guests are asked to refrain from sharing details of the experience, making it harder to get many details about what goes on inside. But some patrons have described their experiences to involve physical pain, often leaving.
I'm gonna go there and I could possibly get unalive and never come back. I can't share my location. I can't tell you nothing. It's just.
I started to think the people that went there sick too. They might like that. They might like that type of stuff. It's no way I would go to a haunted house and say, "Don't share your location. Don't tell you it."
You might not come back.
You might not come back.
Hell no.
Come on, man. Y'all gotta be
claw marks on their skin, psychological torture, emotional distress, and a lot of violence. Miasma can be very physically demanding, forcing patrons to sometimes crawl through tight spaces. One patron said she at one point forgot she was in a haunted house and tapped out when it started to feel like she was genuinely in a life or death situation. The location isn't even revealed to guests until 24 hours prior, and allegedly the location always changes.
Yeah, it changed.
Scare House, the basement. Underneath the regular, tamer attraction known as Scare House in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, used to lie what was known as the basement at Scare House, which was a much more intense, immersive, and interactive experience than that of the one upstairs. And it was held inside a nearly 100-year-old historic and apparently actually haunted building. It's been closed since COVID, but it's rumored to be returning soon. You may enter in pairs or alone, though odds are not many people will be entering this place alone. The actors in this haunted house are incredibly convincing, and there's a lot of improvisation and dialogue as you make your way through each scene of what's basically your own personal real-life horror movie. It's not possible to make it from start to end without coming into contact and having to deal with the actors stopping you and messing around with you. There's extreme physical contact, sexual undertones, real electric shock, religious themes, very tight spaces, and much more. Like most attractions I'll talk about in this video, you must sign a waiver before entering. The basement can get so disturbing that the attraction appropriately has a safe word to yell out if a patron happens to feel violated or too uncomfortable. The Cult was an attraction located in North Conway, New Hampshire. The Cult had been called the ultimate in terror, only for die-hard fans of true horror, for those who want the experience of real-life terror to test your fears. It was an hour-long attraction, and patrons had to walk through alone. Absolutely no groups allowed. Going through it, you would encounter violent situations.
So you got to go through that by yourself. It ain't like you be going through that together. You going through that one by one, and you're going to get tortured and everything.
For a whole hour.
Hell no.
No.
Absolutely no groups allowed. Going through it, you would encounter violent situations, and the actors would lay hands on you many times. As the nervous patrons meet a man before entering the attraction who asks if they have any problems with darkness, heights, claustrophobia, eels, rats, bugs, needles, or being fully submerged in water, most of the patrons were already nervous of what they were getting themselves into. Patrons were given a red card on a lanyard. If one decided the experience was too much, they would give up their safety pass and it would be over. During the experience, patrons would be asked to step into a chairlift that led to a dirt path, which would then lead to a cabin where they would meet a man who would shove them into a booth, yell at them, spray them with unknown liquids, throw a bag over their heads, and then carry them outside, where the simulated torture continued. As patrons continued on, it only got worse. Throughout the attraction, patrons would encounter live animals, for example, being forced to have snakes or cockroaches crawl on them, forced edibles, for example, being forced to drink what the actors would claim as animal urine, extreme violence, and much more. The Cult has been closed since 2013.
Damn.
The Blackout Haunted House was an attraction that had two locations, one in New York and one in California. It featured extreme violence, full frontal nudity, forced edibles, submersion in water, physical contact, and patrons had to enter alone. Patrons were abducted in vans, waterboarded, and even rolled naked in a sheet of plastic and forced to walk barefoot down a hallway. Said hallway would lead to a scene with a horrifically tall figure and frail woman. And if I described the scene, this video would probably get age restricted.
Damn.
As a patron would pass, the tall man would stand up, exposing his body, and then threaten to make physical contact with the patron. Blackout overall relied on darkness, loud noises, violence, and sexual situations to terrify its customers. Until around 2015, it had been a solo-only experience. But starting in, I believe, 2016...
Do not touch the actors, but they can physically touch me and do what the hell they want to do.
Touch the actors.
I'm just looking at all those rules, man. That's crazy.
In 2017, patrons were allowed to enter in groups. It seems Blackout hasn't been open for the past 2 seasons. Freakling Brothers Victim Experience 3 is a Las Vegas attraction featuring extended submersion in water, electric shock, and extreme physical contact. The Victim Experience is extremely intense, and you must go through alone. One patron said he watched a camouflaged attacker appear out of nowhere, grab his colleague by the foot, then knock her down and drag her down a long hallway as she screamed. He was left alone in the darkness until the attacker came back for him and threw him over his shoulder. Patrons will experience electric shock at some point, as well as the feeling of near drowning as they're submerged underwater for extended periods of time. As the title of the attraction suggests, once you enter, you are a victim. You will experience pain and you will be tied up, and you may be carried and thrown. Freakling Brothers actually run 3 haunted houses every year: Castle Vampire, Circus of Horrors, and Gates of Hell. The Gates of Hell became one of the first haunted houses in the country to be R-rated due to graphic content and their requirement of patrons to be over 18 and sign a waiver. The Victim Experience takes place in the Gates of Hell attraction, and it simulates what it would be believed to be like to die and actually go to hell. Without giving too much away, victims are put in several scenes where they're touched, forced to get down on their knees, and subjected to things that anyone would find uncomfortable.
What?
The Raven's Nest was one of the lesser-known extreme haunted houses, and it's been closed since 2009. It had been closed after it was deemed as too extreme by the town. Raven's Nest featured actors who were paid to induce pain on the patrons, as well as other humiliating methods of torture. The owner, Mike McNair, would hire mostly larger and more intimidating actors who would be capable of easily picking up, tying, or shoving patrons. Visitors would also be kicked to the floor and forced to do things like lick the ground, eat disgusting foods and liquids off the floor, and even have actors try to induce vomiting in the patrons. The attraction also played with claustrophobia, having patrons crawl through air vents filled with real cockroaches and spiders, as well as constant tight and cramped rooms and pathways. There was no safe word, which may have been a small factor in the eventual closing of the Raven's Nest. Many of you definitely have heard of this last one, McKamey Manor. This San Diego attraction, if it could even be called that, shouldn't even be in the same category as regular haunted house attractions. This place tops the list because it tends to use extreme scare tactics that are off limits to professional attractions. It also can't be said that what goes on in this place is safe. Participants are covered in blood, forced to eat disgusting things, threatened with power tools, stuffed in a clothes dryer, submerged in water for extended periods, physically assaulted, and even given an unwanted haircut. Participants often leave covered in blood, commonly their own, and so far nobody has made it through to the end. There used to be no safe word, and they would only pull the
hell?
Nobody made it through to the end, so what they got unalive? Like, what happened?
You leaving out in your own blood. And there's no safe word.
I'm convinced that everybody who's playing the part is sick.
The ones going in, the ones doing it, everybody getting their rocks off from being tortured and stuff.
And stuff like that. There's people in the world that like that stuff. Why? Oh, I don't want to go.
It better not be none of y'all that went to any of these things now. Come on now.
Blood when medically necessary. This place plays with people's fears of claustrophobia, with tight spaces and corridors. People's fears of spiders, with restrained victims having up to or even more than 4 tarantulas crawling over their faces. People's fears of clowns, and just about anything else you could think of. Perhaps one of the more shocking parts is that the experience can go on for up to 10 hours.
What?
Obviously a big contributor to why nobody's made it through to the end yet. For a long time, the place didn't have a safe word, and Russ, the owner, only added one after he was told he legally needed to. But even with this safe word, apparently the torture can go on for many people who repeatedly use the safe word, rendering it basically useless. McKamey Manor also garnered a lot of criticism regarding the $20,000 cash prize that they promised to anyone who can make it through to the end, with a lot of people believing they simply wouldn't allow anyone to win, because oftentimes the workers will decide for the patrons that they're done, even if the patron wants to keep going. McKamey Manor is self-described as a place for extreme horror lovers only, who wish to experience what true terror and gross-out torture feels like. But apparently there are a lot of people who wish to experience it, as there's a waiting list of more than 20,000 people. There's currently a Change.org petition to close down McKamey Manor for good, with over 180,000 signatures. Thousands of people shun this place for claiming to be a haunted house attraction, when they believe it's simply a torture chamber under disguise. Russ's 40-page waiver is also very questionable, and he apparently misspells the word liable multiple times to attempt to make certain points of the waiver void. Whatever your thoughts on this place are, anyone would admit it's the definition of a horror attraction that takes it way too far.
Yeah.
No, sir.
No, sir. I think there's places like where people making their fantasy come true. Like they really want to torture your behind. Like they want to. If they can unalive, they would.
And they probably will. I guarantee it's people that's been unalive.
They don't want to inflict pain and make you lick stuff off the ground and vomit and all kinds of stuff like that. I don't play no stuff like that. I wouldn't even sign no waiver. If say something like physically touching me. Like I would go to a haunted house where somebody like jump scared touch me or something like that.
Yeah, something like
but
that.
But not no slap me in my damn head and punch me or push me down to the ground, dragging me and stuff like that, and making me bleed and lick vomit and drink urine, animal pee. No. I can't do it. Whoever like that stuff, that's y'all. Me, I don't want to do none of that stuff.
I'm gonna play that back, and I'm looking some of those stuff up on TikTok.
Yeah.
See if I can see some of it on TikTok and some kind of stuff. That's crazy. I never knew something like that exists. I thought it was just
like
regular haunted houses.
People just run out screaming and attaching you with the little doing little fake chainsaw and all kinds of stuff like that.
But then they actually changed stuff up in the agreement Where they avoid the
waiver.
So
Yeah.
and safe words don't even work either. And they make you not make it through to get the $20,000.
So
They
you
just want to
either-
mess you up.
For 10 hours, like
10 hours.
let me go home. So you gonna have a problem.
So they having shift changes while they messing you up.
Right.
They won't let you out. They probably gonna unalive you in there.
Right.
And some of them places don't let you give nobody where you at, your location, so you can be gone and
You never come back. Like that's sick. I follow this. Sick.
crazy. That's one of the craziest stories I ever
Right.
heard of, man. That was horrifying. 100 houses that take it too far, and they really took it too
They
far.
took it beyond.
Let us know if y'all would go to any of those houses. Be honest. Put it down below in the comment section. Let us know. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Y'all be safe. We catch you on the next one.
Catch y'all next one.